hands up if you've ever found that you either work or study better in some spaces than in others. Oh, most of you. And when in group work, have you ever found that you would have preferred to have worked somewhere else, somewhere different to the space selected by your colleagues? Half of you. Well, that's because we're all unique, we're all individual, and we all have very different spatial needs. Now, it's been 25 years, a quarter of a century since I was last at Surrey University, which I think is probably before most of you were born. And I graduated here in environmental psychology. And since then, I've applied what I learned here, along with my own research, to help design workplaces, particularly offices, that help people enhance their individual and the organisational performance. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk about how we design offices. Many moons ago, when my sons were younger and cuter, they're teenagers now, we would go to the zoo on Sunday afternoons. And I remember there was one zoo in particular that really, really impressed me. Their animal enclosures were meticulously designed to cater for the specific needs of each and every species of animal at that zoo. And as a consequence, the animals were comfortable, they were healthy, and they were certainly flourishing, as was evident by their successful breeding program. And the next day, a gloomy Monday morning, I went into our city offices. And I looked around at the homogeneous layout and design, and I just thought, how can such a uniform space cater for all my unique and wonderful colleagues? And I know we're all the same species, but we're very different animals. We differ in our culture, we differ in our motivations, we differ in our generations, and we also differ in personality. Outside of the office, we choose the spaces that make us feel most comfortable. We choose the spaces that help the task in hand. And we also choose the spaces that just reflect our mood and personality. So personality is key. It's coming up again and again. So how many of you have ever taken a personality test before joining an organisation? A few of you. It's not uncommon in the big wide world. But what I find is really sad is that once we've taken that personality test and then we've joined the organisation and then we start work, they put us all in the same standard one-size-fits-all space. And it just seems absurd to me. Because personality is so important in the workplace. I did a little bit of research and I explored how we can enhance collaboration in the workspace. And the first thing I learned, just from the literature review, is that the most successful teams, the most collaborative teams, the most productive teams are the ones with a rich mix of personality types. So we need those different personality types in the workplace. And that does beg the question, well, how do we measure, how do we evaluate personality? And actually, there are lots of different personality theories, and there are certainly many, many different personality traits. And in the 1930s, psychologists, Allport and Obert, they found 18,000 descriptors of personality traits. 18,000. And since then, us psychologists have been trying to boil it down to a more manageable number. And as a consequence, I use 5 personality traits in my research. I use the Big 5 inventory, or Ocean Scale, which was developed by Berkeley University. And you can see them here. So the first one is openness. How open are we to new ideas? How creative are we? How artistic are we? Compared to people who might be just a little bit more conservative and traditional. Then we have conscientiousness. These are the people who plan ahead. They keep to time. They're very diligent. their word is their bond, compared to maybe their colleagues who might have a more laissez-faire approach to timekeeping and planning. But those people are a little bit easier to get on with. And then we have our extroverts. These are our social animals. They like spending time with other people. They're risk takers, they're thrill seekers, and they don't mind speaking off the cuff. Hands up if you're a bit of an extrovert. Shout, me, me, me. On the other hand, we have the introverts. Now, the introverts, they prefer the quieter life. They prefer their own company. They tend to think things through, mull things over, and look at the detail before speaking out in company. So any introverts, stand on your desk, on your tables. We won't do that one today. And then we have agreeableness. So the more agreeable people, they have more empathy for their colleagues, and they tend to make good team players. In contrast, we have the less agreeable, the more challenging people who tend to prefer to work alone. And finally, we have neuroticism, which is quite a harsh word, or nervousness. The apprehensive people, the anxious people, compared to their colleagues who might be a little bit more emotionally stable and easygoing. But I would say that we just need a little bit of anxiety to help us get things done. Now, this is my profile. And two things you'll notice in particular. The first is that I'm slightly extroverted, but I'm highly neurotic. Now that means I love giving presentations like this, but I don't have to worry about it. And I worry about giving them, and I worry about what people will think about them. And the other thing you'll notice on my profile is that I'm disagreeable, which obviously I disagree with. So, okay, so this is my wife's profile. And what we notice straight away is we're at opposite ends of the personality scales. This has its challenges, particularly our tardiness. But nevertheless, we balance each other out. We support each other. And didn't I just say that the most successful teams are the ones with a mix of personality types? And that applies to the home as well as the workplace. Now, when I talk to my colleagues about how important personality is in the workplace, they just say, Nigel, we just want to save money, or we just want to make money. We haven't got time for personality. Most of them do at least recognise that we've entered the quaternary economic sector. We have entered the age of innovation, and creativity in the workplace is paramount for the economic survival of those companies. But you think about creativity. You think about companies who are bringing new products and new services to the market. You not only need just the big ideas people, the creatives. We need researchers, we need analysts, we need lawyers, we need project managers. And those people tend to be a bit more introverted, they tend to be highly conscientious, and maybe a little bit less anxious. And likewise, we might need people to help us get those products to market. So we need sales and marketing. And again, those people tend to be a little bit more extroverted and a little bit more agreeable. So you can see how, even in the creative industries, we need this rich mix of personality types to be successful. So let me switch back to talking about office design. And over those 25 years, I've noticed two common mistakes in office design. And the first one, ironically, is we're probably spending too much time focusing on creativity and collaboration. We're seeing a lot of offices which are stimulating, buzzy, noisy, colourful, and they tend to be accompanied by slides and beanbags and games areas. And this is great for the introverts. Susan Cain, in her book, Quiet the Power of the Introvert, and TED Talk, she said, we are designing offices for the extrovert ideal. So great for them. But the introverts, they find those spaces overstimulating. And those spaces lead to stress, lead to absenteeism, and loss of productivity. So not so good. And the second design mistake I see is chasing desk densities, particularly in the UK. We're seeing seas and seas of desks in densely packed offices, deep plan offices, with very few facilities for the staff. And whilst that might seem a little bit underwhelming, actually, they're noisy, they're dense, they can be perceived as overcrowded. So again, our introverts find those spaces overstimulating, and again, their productivity is lost. So what do our introverts like? Oh, sorry, I've got another slide. This is actually a stock photo, and this one is a real one. And the stock photo is not as bad as some of the spaces I've visited in real life. And I've been working with a company recently, and they had 1 metre desks. They were rolling out 1 metre desks side by side for all of their staff. And this wasn't a contact centre. This was a company who were having important conversations with their clients on the phone. It was overdense, it didn't work. So what do the introverts like? So they like calmer, more subdued, calmer spaces. They like spaces where they can go and retreat with a little bit of solitude, spaces where they can chill, where they can relax, and where they can focus, and where they can have confidential calls. But also what our research has found is that the extroverts are spending less time in the office, and when in the office, they're spending less time at their desk. So it seems to me that we're designing all these wonderful stimulating spaces for the people who aren't even there. And the same applies to our creatives. We found that the highly creative people spend more time at home than their colleagues. And we think the reason behind this is when you look at the creative process, yes, we all have to come together, we brainstorm, we exchange knowledge, but also creativity includes bouts of solitary activity where people They tend to say solo activity. It might be walking or jogging in the park or amongst nature. And in fact, other research has shown that nature helps energize us and can help us come up with those original ideas. There's a whole field of research on that. Also, people have said they have their most creative ideas in the shower or in the bath. And that's not surprising when you think Archimedes had his eureka moment in the bath. So we also looked at the preferences of other personality types, not just introverts and extroverts. We found our neurotics, when they have meetings, they like to have private meetings, confidential meetings in closed rooms and formal spaces with lots of documents and notes taken. We found that our agreeable people, they like to have big town hall meetings where everyone's invited and it's all inclusive. And then they'll follow up those inclusive meetings with one-to-ones with individuals. And our conscientious people, we found with them that they'd rather not have meetings in social spaces, breakout spaces, cafes, the pub, wherever, because they just don't consider them to be proper work settings. So choose the space to suit the personality types. So how do we design for different personality types? Well, fortunately, a lot of jobs attract specific personalities. So if we go in and profile a department, we might find, for example, that they're highly introverted, maybe highly conscientious, maybe slightly neurotic. And for a group of people like that, which might be research and analysts, many of you amongst the audience, we might say, let's start with a quiet, subdued, calming environment. But even those people will need time to occasionally go and make noise, be sociable, make private calls and so on. So we need to provide other spaces for them. And likewise, or in contrast. We might find that our department, our team, are maybe more extroverted. Maybe they're more score high on the openness scale. Maybe they're less anxious. And for those people, could be a sales and marketing team, we might provide a stimulating and buzzy-based environment. But even those people need time to go to places to chill and relax and take time out. But if you remember, I said earlier, actually the best teams are the ones with a mix of personality types. So how do we design for those? Well, then we just have to provide a whole range, a whole host of different work settings that they can choose from. And we have to empower those people to be able to get up and go to those spaces and use them as and when benefits them. If we provide these spaces, people will migrate towards the ones that make them feel comfortable, make them more productive, enhances their well-being. Because let's not forget that not just the biggest cost, but the biggest asset of any organisation is its people. And it's just false economy to be saving a little bit of money by skimping on space, by reducing the facilities, by providing these homogeneous one-size-fits-all environments just because they're easy to manage and easy to operate. We need to tailor our spaces for different personality types. In the workplace zoo, we want all of our animals to flourish. In the design and construction industry, we need to acknowledge and embrace uniqueness and individuality and design for it. What I want you to do, as people about to go out into the big wild world, is to not only select the organisations, but also the spaces that match your personality. And that way, I think you will find that you are more comfortable, more productive, happier, with a better quality of work life.